but I'm not sure. Letting Bedwyr go first seems stupid. You know, he's been a dick, and I'm the second son, but I'm higher in rank than him. Morgan is wise. Saying I will go makes me go first, but I don't know if that doesn't show my pride. We should draw straws. If we are the deserving, I think it doesn't matter who goes first, so let's draw straws. You pull up 3 braids of grass and snap 2 to the same length and 1 shorter. Then, concealing their length, you let Morgan and Bedwyr choose. Bedwyr is the shorter. He nods. Very well. With a look of apprehension, Bedwyr ducks under the lintel of the tomb and disappears into the dark. You hear nothing for a time, then faintly, the sound of a voice, muffled. Minutes pass, as all outside are silent. Morgan's hand twitches near yours, as if in need of reassurance, but under her mother's gaze it falters. You are only too aware of Vivian, a dark crow standing watchful, and you know the eyes of the shimmering figure in white are also on you. Bedwyr emerges with a haunted, drawn look on his face. In his fist he clutches a heavy torque, a neckband of twisted gold wire. He swallows and opens his mouth to speak. Vivian shakes her head, and he nods in acquiescence. Well? It's your turn. You duck under the lintel and head into the darkness. Your boots are muffled on the packed earth floor. You're in a tunnel which winds to the left. The roof is low, and you're walking half crouched. You draw in your elbows, which scrape on the stones set in the walls. The air tastes of earth and dampness. You quickly start to feel trapped, start to feel a need to stand up, to push your arms outwards, to break the walls. You can't see, and wish you'd brought a spill from Vivian's brassiere. And then there's light ahead, and you emerge into a small chamber. The light comes from one of 3 square holes in the side of the chamber roof. It blinds you for a moment. You raise a hand against it and give yourself time for your eyes to adjust. In the center of the chamber, cut into the middle of the floor, is a box with stone sides. In it, curled up like a child, is what used to be a man. You've seen death before. Of course you have. And a dead man should be nothing to fear. Yet, as you kneel, something wraps itself around your heart. You can feel it quivering in your chest, and you realize that this man surely cannot be dead, surely simply asleep. There's color in his cheeks and his lips. His skin is smooth and untainted by any rot or illness. And then you realize that this man must be dead, for you remember his death. You remember the whole fort in mourning for him. You remember him whittling a stick for you to play at swords. This is your uncle, the High King before Uther. This is Ambrosius, Pendragon of the Britons. How can he look so alive? You reach out and tentatively touch his skin. It's cold, yet still soft under your fingers. He looks as if he might wake up at any moment, yet he is dead. Lady Vivian's arts? You sit back and take in the rest of the chamber. It is dressed as the chamber of a king. There are wooden chests, cups, a towel bird set with carved wooden pieces, enameled brooches, a heavy silver drinking chalice ornamented with gold lice close by Ambrosius' hand. You remember seeing that in the long hall, passed to guests to welcome them. Set just above his head, almost as a pillow, is a roll of cloth embroidered in red and green. That must surely be Ambrosius' banner. You remember the dragon that used to fly above the fort. By the king's side lies a scabbarded sword with a Roman-style hilt. It's set with a purple stone. The copperwork of the hilt glints in the light. Vivian said that you should choose a treasure. I take a silver chalice. I take the king's sword. I take the banner. I hate that I'm thinking about this like it, but I think that each of them represents one of these things. The banner represents the leader, the chalice represents the diplomat, and the sword represents the warrior. So for that, I take the banner. Achievement unlocked. A kingdom standard. You lift the roll of cloth from next to the king's head, half afraid that he might stir and stop you, that you might be violating his grave. But he makes no move. Indeed, his expression is one of profound peace. The banner smells musty, but the colors are still bright, red and green thread glinting in the light. You stand looking at Ambrosius for a moment. He is at rest, and his troubles have passed. Yours have barely started. You turn your back and make your way down the corridor, cradling the banner to your chest. When you reach the entryway, you see concerned faces looking in at you. You let them see your prize, and step, blinking into the light. Emrys nods at you in satisfaction. It's Morgan's turn. Morgan swallows, lets out a slow breath, and steps forward into the darkness of the tomb. You can hear nothing from inside. Morgan liked Ambrosius. You can remember the old king teaching you both a hunting song in the long hall, and his pleased laughter at Morgan singing it in front of a packed hall at Samhain. After a time that seems to stretch on forever, Morgan stumbles out of the tomb. In her hand, she holds a heavy cup wrought of silver. Interesting, no one picked the sword. She shakes her head at you, tears in her eyes, and then she clutches at her belly and doubles over, screaming in pain and sobbing. You rush forward. Vivian and Emrys are by your side. You lift her and lay her down on softer grass. She twists on to her side, hugging herself. Vivian and Emrys exchange a look. Emrys grabs you by the arm and pulls you away, while Vivian ministers to Morgan. "What's wrong with her?" asks Bedwyr in shock. "You foolish girl," murmurs Vivian, and you're alarmed to hear tears in her voice. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Was she pregnant?" You stare at Emrys. "The spirits will only suffer one living soul to stand within," he says quietly. "Did you not know she was with a child?" "Oh my God!" You shake your head in blank incomprehension. "Lady Vivian, will she... "Hold your tongue up, Uther!" she snaps in rage. Emrys restrains you gently while Vivian works. Bedwyr paces back and forth. Oh my God. The sun is lower in the sky when Vivian comes to you. One of her apprentices sits with Morgan, who is pale but conscious. "She will live," says Vivian, "as does the child." Oh my God. Within her. Whether it will remain healthy, whether she will bear it living when the time comes, whether it has been changed by this, I cannot tell. But know and remember this, Arthur of Uther. All actions have consequences, and if my daughter dies because of you... She trails off, and you see her eyes are wet. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "I'll look after her. I love her. Or is there anything I can do?" "I love her." "Love? Your love will bring her nothing but ruin, Arthur of Uther. Do not be a fool." She shakes her head. "There is work yet to be done." She pulls her hood up until her eyes are shadowed. Well, the shadows have shifted. Behind the fog, the sun must be well past noon. You sit on the grass, not far from the tomb. Morgan and Emrys sits next to you. Bedwyr sits apart, and Torque by his side. Vivian stands before all of you, seemingly deep in thought. Behind her, amongst the stones, is the White Lady, fading in and out of existence. She says nothing, but simply watches, hands clasped in front of her. Vivienne clears her throat. She looks at Bedwyr. "The torque," she says. "It is the torque of the Pendragon. Ambrosius wore it, and all saw it. If one who seeks to rule is seen wearing it, it will add much to their claim. It was not passed to Uther." "Why not?" asks Bedwyr. "That is not for me to say," says Vivienne. She looks at Morgan. "The chalice is the king's guesting cup. Perhaps a luxury in these days, but at the least it's worth money. Selling it could make certain that the people of Gwynedd have the food and arms they need to fight the Saxons, or it could be given as a royal gift to strengthen an alliance." She looks to you. "The red dragon banner has not been seen in 10 years. It will put heart into the people of Gwynedd if they see it flying on the battlefield." Something passes between Vivienne and the White Lady. Vivienne nods, and then looks around at all of you. "It is time for you to lay aside any difference you might have amongst you," she says. "They only serve to weaken us. Take these treasures back into the world. It is their time." You return to the mainland across the causeway and reunite with Gawain and Kai on the shore. They were led astray by the fog and eventually found their way back. All 4 of you who spent time on the isle find yourself reluctant to talk of the experience, and you haven't even begun to think about the revelation that Morgan is pregnant. It is yours, from the autumn festival? What will she do? What will you do? Despite bearing hope in the form of the treasures, it is a silent and thoughtful group who make their way back through the fog to Dinas Emrys as the evening falls. Once through the gates, Bedwyr turns to you. "They spoke truth. We should not be set against one another, not in the face of Cynric and his people. I acknowledge you, war leader. Now, I go to present the torque to our father, but later we should talk." As he walks away, Emrys says, "That took courage. Perhaps there is some hope after all." "The man's still an ass," mutters Kai. "Perhaps so," rumbles Gawain, "but he's far from the only one." "At least I don't pretend I'm God's gift to anything. Except women?" says Gawain. "Ah, yes, well, guilty, I suppose." You make your way towards the long hall. It's full of people. You're told that a delegation of monks from Ireland have petitioned to see the king. Bedwyr stands at Uther's side. The torque lies in the king's hands. The old man looks up at you as you enter, and nods, then turns back to his discussion with the abbot, someone you've been seeing at the court before. Kai deftly scoops up 2 cups of wine from a nearby table and hands you one of them. "Here's to not being cold and damp," he says. "Should you talk to your father?" "I suppose I should," you say reluctantly, and start down the hall. Next to you, Morgan clears her throat. "Afterwards, can we talk? In private?" The muscles in her jaw flex. She's tense as a bowstring. You open your mouth to reply, and then, "To the gates! To the gates, Saxons!" Gawain's sword's in his hand. "Around Steve, where did they come from?" He pushes through the crowd towards the door. Then, "Arthur!" It's Kai. You follow his gaze. The abbot has a knife drawn. Your stomach lurches. "I've seen him before. He's no priest. Then monks are throwing off their habits. Underneath are tattooed, lean bodies and sharp swords. One of them grins at you. "Where? Cynric!" shouts Morgan. Bedwyr backhands the abbot across the face. The man stumbles and falls, but Cynric is there in 2 swift strides. He brings down his sword towards Uther. Bedwyr throws up his arm, and then you hear a cry and see blood spurted and a hand severed spin across the hall. Oh my god, it's gory. Then Cynric's sword slices into the king's neck and blood sprays. Emrys, the king! I'll leap to the king's defense and protect him, fighting off Cynric while Emrys binds Uther's wounds. Or Emrys, save Bedwyr! Uther won't survive this. I'll fight off Cynric while Emrys binds Bedwyr's wounds. Or Gwynedd! To arms! Ulfr and Bedivere are lost. I'll ravage the hall and will wipe out Cynric. Oh God. Well, Ulfr is dead. Bedivere lost an arm. We need everyone we can get. Going ahead! To arms! Ulfr and Bedivere are lost. I'll ravage the hall and will wipe out Cynric. Going ahead! You scream a rallying cry. With me, Kai, Emrys, Morgan! You draw your sword and grab up a stool as a shield. On me! You start forward towards the Saxons. Not a ragged charge, but a slow and steady advance, keeping your force together, giving other folk a chance to swell your ranks or to take cover behind you. Cynric stands next to the king, his sword at Ulfr's chest. You make him your focus, engaging Saxon warriors where you must, but moving forward, always forward. Cynric's gaze is pure, black-eyed hatred. He rams his sword through Ulfr's chest. Dark gore bursts from the king's mouth. Then Cynric simply stands waiting for you at the end of the hall, his followers around him, bloodied sword point down on the ground. The Saxons are all black-eyed now, their shoulders hunched, their tendons and muscles standing out stark against their skin. You catch a flush of claw and a glimpse of lengthened tooth. The spirals on their skin and the blood splattering their bodies makes them seem holy creatures of a nightmare. I don't think we have a way out to do this. On, you say, voice firm, and you don't let the people around you falter. Step, step, another step, and then you realize you're chanting it as if you were in the Roman lines, as if Hector were drilling you. Step, move forward. Step, move forward. Kai takes it up alongside you, and then Emrys, and other voices, and suddenly the Saxons seem smaller, less fearsome, as your implacable advance approaches. Step, step. You see Cynric lick his lips, as if in doubt. He looks at the body of the king, and back at you, and then mutters something in Saxon. His men fade backwards towards the door at the back of the hall, and then take their leave. As soon as they're gone, Emrys and Morgan run to where Bedivere and the king lie. I thought we were going to kill them! Ulfr is dead. It's clear from a glance. There's no blood left to flow. It stains the great fur cloak and pools on the floor beneath. You reach out a hand and close the blank, staring eyes. Bedivere lies pale in a pool of his own blood. Emrys, kneeling beside him, looks up at you. He still lives, he says. Gawain, bind his arm, hold it tight. Arthur, we need fire to seal the wound. You grab your knife, oh God, and thrust it amongst the glowing embers of the fire. Emrys rips cloth from his undershirt and makeshift bandages, while Kai fetches fresh water. Once the knife point glows red, you use a corner of your cloak to pick it up by the hilt. The color is fading fast. You drop to your knees beside Bedivere. Gawain has his hand clamped around the stump. He looks at you, then nods and loosens the bindings. Blood spurts. You bring down the flat of the blade. Bedivere screams and then passes out again. The hall is silent around you. Figures standing, watching. You can feel the uncertainty in them, the shock, the hopelessness. 7 hells, says Kai at length. Tell them what to do, Arthur. Get them doing something. Anything. Why are you asking me? A maimed man cannot be the king, says Emrys. Had you forgotten?